This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
This week, we've got 5 main reviews to talk about. We're going to kick off with the Korean political thriller Hunt. Then we have Final Cut, which gave me a bit of deja vu. Legend of Hawes. Expired with Ryan Kwanten and Hugo Weaving. And then we got Like Dogs. Our short shot this week is called Trusted Hands, and our DTV throwback is Wolf Mother. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first review then is Hunt. Set in the 1980s in South Korea, this sees a director of the Korean CIA being forced to work with somebody from his past when a mole is suspected to be in their organization following a couple of botched missions. Straight over to Steve. So this is, it's kind of like a testosterone-filled version of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, in my opinion. What did you make of this one, Steve?
I really enjoyed this. I thought it was absolutely cracking.
It's fucking brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you've got it's very twisty, turning, backstabbing here, and I don't know if it's how true to life it is. I mean, a lot of the interrogation scenes, shall we say, take it quite far, and
they were quite eye-watering, weren't they? Some of those,
yeah,
very difficult to watch.
Especially with like his adopted daughter or whatever she was, and stuff like that. But I think it does well to set it against the political background, with the student riots and stuff like that. But the direction was great. I mean, I didn't even realise until a minute ago that it was actually. I'm going to murder all the names in this. I really am. Lee Jung-jae, directorial debut as well.
Who's our main cast member as well.
So he must have been knackered, to be fair.
Absolutely.
Because it moves a lick as well. There's no waiting around. It's straight in there, straight into the action, and it's all choreographed really, really well. Just overall, really enjoyed it. I think the only slight reservation is like the final act is a little bit too twisty turny, if you know what I mean. A bit too much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That last scene at the cliff, on the cliff.
Yeah.
That kind of reminded me of like the final scene in The Departed or something like that. It's like, you just had to push it a little bit too much. Yeah. But I totally agree with you. I love this. A couple of things. As you say, it starts at a breakneck pace because it starts off in Washington, of all places, because the president is visiting Washington, state visit, and you've got representatives from the KCIA as well as the domestic affairs people who are basically the Korean Gestapo, as it turns out, bloody tortures and shit. And suddenly they find out that there's an attempt about to happen on the president's life, and the whole thing just kicks into high gear very quickly as people are sort of running around and stuff, and there's shootouts, all sorts going on. But it's all driven by the music. The way the music builds is absolutely superb. And one of the things the film does capture in that early scene as well is it places the viewer right in the center of everything's going on. We're there. The camera's keeping up with the main characters, but it's not sort of drawing our attention to anything. So we're
Yeah.
discovering
Yeah.
stuff as they do. So so there's gunfire going off. Suddenly a body just sort of lands on the stage at the back of the back of the shot, and it's like,
No, that.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like we're learning what they're learning. We're not given any sort of like extra clues or anything. So
No.
that we're reacting the same way they are, which is really, really cool. And yeah, the action was just superb. I mean, there's about 3 or 4 sort of big set pieces. There's that whole thing in Tokyo when the that they totally botch up that that they're trying to get hold of this
Drop off. Yeah.
the drop off guy and stuff, and it goes horribly wrong. And there's this brilliant sort of shootout in the middle of the street, which was superb. There's bits like that, but even just stuff like going through a file, trying to find a photo, trying to corroborate people's telephone conversations with when they were in the various places, and the music sort of just builds and builds and just sort of pushes you forward through all these scenes. It is interesting because we get this moment, which I'll describe as the Rollo Tomasi moment from LA Confidential, basically.
Yeah.
When sort of the plot kind of spins itself, and flips over, and then it sort of kind of flips again later on, and it's really interesting because it turns out that there's different factions who kind of want the same thing but are working against each other at the same time. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just looking on IMDb, and they're sort of saying apparently there's loads of complaints when the film came out, like at Cannes and things like that people thought it was too dense and it couldn't follow the plot. And I'm like, yeah, you have to pay attention, but it's all there, all the information.
Yeah. That's the other thing. It's one of them where you can't be on Twitter while you're watching it or anything like that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
You do need to pay attention. You really do.
Yeah, kind of like Spirit Walker that we saw at the beginning of the year. So you got to pay attention to what's going on. It's interesting what you say. You mentioned the surrogate daughter kind of thing, the daughter-in-law, and that character, the way that plays out. It's one of these films that, as you get more information, it makes you think back to how people reacted earlier in the film.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a bit where Park's at a funeral, and she comes in and goes, "Oh, is that my dad's ashes?" And he's like, "How old are you?" And it's just and you think, "Well, that's weird," but then later on you find out why. It's really clever. So yeah, this was brilliant. Basically, it's a shame almost that it didn't get a cinema release, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad because it means we can cover it here. Altitude Films are releasing this just on streaming, I believe, digital.
No, it's in cinemas at the same time. It's one of those premiums. Right. It's a premium home VOD, and like Curzon cinemas and stuff like that.
Are they planning to do a physical release though, or not? Do you know?
At the moment, all we know is of the of this initial cinema and premium release. I'm not sure about what the plans are further down the line.
But this is very, very, very good.
I'm disappointed I didn't get to see it.
Yeah, that's a shame. But Steve, what are you going to score Hunt?
I'm going to give it a 9.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm giving it a 9 as well.
Yeah.
This is definitely in my top 10 for this year. It's it is just so good. It really is. For a bit downbeat, but absolutely superb. Okay, 2 9s for Hunt. As Rich said, it's currently being shown in Curzon cinemas. Altitude also released a VOD copy. Take it from us. Jung-jae, of course, famous for his role in Squid Game. Also, he was in another film we covered this year as well. The one about the hitman who has to go to Japan. Deliver Us from Evil. That was it.
Yeah.
That was a really good one as well. But yeah, definitely go and check this one out. That's Hunt. 2 9s from us. Our next review is Final Cut. Things go badly for a small film crew shooting a low-budget zombie movie when they are attacked by real zombies.
That sounds familiar, Mike. Tell me all
It
about
does
it.
sound a little bit familiar. So this is the French remake of One Cut of the Dead, which is a Japanese film, and the Japanese film is brilliantly structured. It is a delight to watch. So's this. Because this is basically a carbon copy. It is a shot-for-shot remake of the Japanese version.
How long was the original version? Because this one's 2 hours.
90 minutes. Well, about was it really?
Yeah, so this one, I'm just looking it up now. This one, I think this is about 15-20 minutes longer.
Yeah.
And so what
I couldn't tell you, because I was sort of like, I'll tell you why. Because, you know, the initial bit, at least the first half of this, is a slavish remake of what was in the Japanese one. This is how weird it is. They even use the same character names. So all these French people have Japanese character names.
Okay.
How weird is that?
And what's interesting is, looking from the outside, is this is not just like a low budget production or whatever. This is from the makers of The Artist. This is Michel Hazanavicius and
exactly.
Romain Duras in the lead, and Berenice Beregeau from The Artist also in the cast. Yeah.
So, you know, you say this is longer. I mean, I kind of zoned out, I must admit, watching this, and it kind of gave me a bad taste in the mouth a little bit, because it was so slavishly sticking to the script and what happens in it, and the way the camera moves and all the rest of it. It made the original feel artificial, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
Because
so you think seeing this version has ruined the original for you?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit, because you know you can watch the original, and so I'll explain a little bit how this pans out. So the first 30 minutes of the film is like the film within a film sort of thing. Yeah, these guys are filming a really low budget zombie movie, and then they're actually attacked by real zombies. Yeah, if people die, my last character manages to get to the roof, and there's like a big pentagram on the roof, and she stands in the middle of it as the camera sort of raises above her. It's relatively cool, right? And then it cuts and goes back a month, and we learn that the director of this film has been chosen by this Japanese company, funny enough, to make a zombie movie, which is going to be streamed live as they film it on this new sort of horror channel. You know, so imagine Shudder having a bit of a premiere launch and saying, you know, our sort of flagship product is going to be this sort of live, you know, as you see it happening, sort of zombie movie. So the middle part of the film is them prepping for this, okay, and then the last third of the film is what actually happens when they try to film it, because it's meant to be all one shot as well. So once the camera starts rolling, you know, for that 30 minutes, then they cut. And what makes it fun is seeing the first, you know, the first segment, and then compare it to the last segment. And what was one of the interesting things about it is noticing how the camera moves and how it doesn't. There are a couple of times when you see the camera start to pan left and then suddenly stop and go back to back to where it started from, and things like this. It's because when you see it later on, they're like, no, we're not ready yet, you know, all this sort of stuff, and try to keep it going, and it is very good. It is very, very amusing, but I really feel it's unnecessary. You know, I don't think I don't really think they've added anything to what was already a really good film.
It's like a Gus Van Sant Psycho.
It's a Gus Van Sant Psycho. Exactly. That's what I felt about it. I'm surprised it's longer. You know.
Well, you know what that could be in part? End credits.
Could be.
Because I'm betting the end credits on the original were pretty short compared to a big budget, relatively big budget sort of production. But I mean, they would have had assistants and God knows,
absolutely,
catering and stuff. Whereas I'm sure the original was, I mean, it's like shot on a shoestring kind of thing, I believe. It's quite a. Do you remember when it was coming out? A Third Window were releasing it, and it got leaked. It was, you know, Amazon had a pirate copy.
That's right.
Online, and there was a bit of an. That was kind of one of the moments that made you think, is the quality control on Amazon there?
Not very good. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. Because there have been a couple of cases. So I remember when it came out, and I remember us going to we went
to Flop, didn't we? And I got a copy signed by one of the actresses, which is really cool.
Yeah, but, one of the things is I'm looking on the cast list, and the character names on IMDb are French.
Yeah, so the this is the weird thing. The characters in the film within the film bit.
The characters in the film they're making have the Japanese
names.
I see.
But even so, even the director, it's all a bit weird.
Yeah. Is it framed as a remake? Do they ever acknowledge we are remaking a film? Do they ever do that?
Yeah. Well, I think there is a line in there. Yes. There's a line in there where they sort of said, "Oh, we did this in Japan. It went down really well," and that's basically it. You know,
it's more of a throwaway kind of thing rather than a literal acknowledgement kind of thing. But
but it's
there's no returning cast members or anything. Nobody pops up in a cameo or anything that you can.
There's one Japanese actress in it. Well, actually, actually it's two. Who turned up, and they're like the producers of this, horror channel.
Oh, okay.
There is quite a funny bit when they sort of when they're introduced to the director, and they sort of, the way things are interpreted is quite amusing.
Oh, yeah, I've just picked one of the names on IMDb, and they were in one cut.
Yeah, I've just seen it as well. Yeah.
Fair dues.
So I think
it's fun. Yeah, either version. Either version's fun. It really is. The original I just really liked. I'm not saying this is soulless or anything like that. I just think it's slavish.
Do you think it was because the director is a creative person? So do you think he's intentionally kind of tried to? I mean, like Gus Van Sant, I guess, but intentionally tried to challenge himself to not.
It could be.
Is it an experimental film in that sense of like?
I think it could be. I really do. There is a funny bit, where they're explaining to the director what it is they want him to do. It's all one shot for a 30-minute film, and he's like, no, it can't be. Are you kidding? And it's like, I could, as a director, that probably has a lot of appeal. We should ask was it James Nunn? His opinion after doing one shot, sort of how far you can go with it. But it's a fun film. I'm not sure if it adds anything to the original.
So if somebody had a choice, I mean, both have got subtitles and stuff, so it's not like that subtitle
for an English
person that might put somebody off. So somebody's going to watch it. Are you still saying, oh yeah, you've definitely got to watch the original, or is there any reason that you could think of that you would say, actually, why not try this one first instead? Any reason for that? Or would you direct them to the original?
I'd direct them to the original because even the the actual sort of film within the film bit, it as I said, they're using the same script as the Japanese version, and it does feel just a bit off.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It feels like it's like an ill-fitting coat a little bit. So yeah, I'd probably try the Japanese version first, the original one cut of a dead, before going into final cut.
So how are you going to score it?
I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's not bad. It's very entertaining. It's just marred a little bit because there is the original out there.
What about quality of this? The practical effects and stuff like that.
They are deliberately bad.
Yeah,
Deliberately so. The level of zombie movie. Let me try and consider how to describe this. It's a Steve Lawson budget kind of thing, but without the sets. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's fun. It is fun. I maintain that it is fun, especially when you kind of put yourself in the cameraman's position, and you're looking through the cameraman's lens rather than actually watching the film. It is a lot of fun, as you're trying to sort of track what's happening, where people are when they go off camera, what could be happening. There is one bit where the camera pans around a little too fast and catches like the makeup woman still putting makeup on one, bit of extra blood on one of the characters, and then sort of quickly it zips away again, sort of little things like that. But it's when you see that final part when they're actually making the film and you're sort of like with the director behind the scenes and the production crew trying to make it work and keep the camera rolling, that's the really fun part. So yeah, definitely a 7 out of 10 for Final Cut. Go check it out. Our next review is The Legend of Hawes. Set in the Old West, a young woman hires a notorious gunslinger to help her avenge her family's death at the hands of a marauding Neanderthal tribe. So what we got here, Rich, is basically a low-budget version of Bone Tomahawk.
Oh, okay. Is that what that's about? Because I've not seen that movie.
Yeah.
There's kind of monsters in that movie?
Well, not monsters as such, but there is this sort of Neanderthal tribe who are sort of abducting people and stuff. It's a great. I mean, it's a brilliant Western in itself. But there is this element as well, which is really cool. But yes, so that's what this is. It's going for that sort of vibe, well, kind of. Apart from the whole, trying to be authentic of the period or anything like that. You can tell just from the music where this influences are from. There's some really cod Sergio Leone music at times. You've got our hero who's trying to do like a raspy Clint Eastwood kind of voice. Except he looks like Miles O'Keefe. You can almost.
Actually, yeah, I think that's reasonable. Yeah.
He kind of he looks like he's on. He should be on a like calendar or something, basically. But there you go. Yeah, I did not enjoy this. I must. I really wanted to. I did want to, but I just found the editing to be lackluster. Scenes went on far too long for their own good. So the shootouts were ridiculous. The creatures were okay, but I don't know. They looked like they were in the wrong film, kind of thing. But anyway, what did you make of this one, mate?
Well, obviously, my name is Hawes, so I came at this from a particular angle of just being intrigued by what it seemed.
I was interested because
Go on.
Well, what surprised me, I thought Hawes was looking at the cover and stuff. I thought, okay, so this is like a horror western, and Hawes is going to be the monster. And we were going to rib you incessantly about it for months. But no, Buddy Hawes turns out to be the bloody hero, doesn't he? Yeah. Well, that's all our fun ruined.
which for me just made all the some of the dialogue of, every time they mention the name Hawes, which for me is just like I've never heard that name used in anything American. I'm only familiar with it used in the UK or people named in the UK, and there's a place in Yorkshire with that name. stuff like that. So I thought, oh, is it a place in America?
Yeah.
And in a way, it kind of is, because there's actually the film was shot on a place called Hawes Farm, which they reference at the end of the movie. They actually show a plaque.
That's
plaque
what that was.
But that's but there's no, because I was checking on it. I wasn't sure. Is there any kind of connection between what's happening in the film and the story they're telling there and this thing in real life? And no, none of the character names seem to tally or anything. So I think they've just tied in the name Hawes. It's a Hawes ranch and stuff where they went to at the end, because there's this weird epilogue where it's like an amusement park and stuff. But yeah, so when the film sort of gets going, and I realized actually the heroes, the character, you know, who is the obligatory, you know, sort of drunk, you know, old gunslinger who, you know, everybody's sort of written off, and actually there's more to him, and you know, he's actually pretty handy with a gun and stuff. And so the dialogue for me was just sort of really amusing from that sense of just thinking, wow, this just feels really weird. And after to hear all these names. But that aside, and the novelty factor of the whole Hawes thing, this is a Rene Perez movie, and I've not seen many. I've seen a couple. We did the Snake Eyes short film that he did, which is a good example of a particular visual style that he has that is also present here. There's lots of shooting in the woods. There's lots of sort of a bit sort of washed out, kind of not particularly interesting cinematography, but then they add in the sort of editing tricks and stuff. So this has got this has got like artificial scratches and stuff, which try to do a sort of a grindhouse thing, but it's more distracting than anything else. Wasn't really necessary. I like the film overall. I'm not a big Western fan, but I thought actually he was playing with the tropes and stuff, and all presenting them all, you know, pretty well. I liked Mike Markoff as Hawes. We got Richard Tyson in there for a little bit as well as Mr. Tyson, which is always nice to see. And he's pretty much the only name in the movie. And the rest of the cast is quite small. One of the interesting ones, there's a Swedish lady in it, which seems really random. But I think she's been in a few of Rene Perez's movies.
That was probably the most authentic part of the film. You know, the fact that we got this, because there would have been all these sort of immigrants, on these, you know, on these trails trying to settle down, that sort of thing. So yeah, that bit, although actually I can go with that.
Well, interesting. When I was checking on the credits, this was her last film. She's passed away now.
Oh,
she undisclosed, but she was only 32. And unfortunately, the sort of the thing you'll remember her from in the movie is a rather sleazy attempted rape or whatever scene, which this film reminded me a lot of The Hills Have Eyes, the remakes.
Yeah.
Which had that very sort of sleazy monster, gropey, you know, nastiness in it, especially the second one. And so this has a bit of that, but not too much. But that was a little bit off-putting. But for the most part, I did think the clan or you know the monsters or whatever we're supposed to think of them. It's like Wrong Turn, basically, the sort of inbred sort of character.
I think that's what they're going for. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that they looked pretty decent. And the film is only hour and 15 minutes long, something like that.
Pretty short.
Emily Whitcomb as Harriet, I thought, you know, it doesn't ring true. You know, it's all very sort of amateur dramatics-ish at times, but I liked it. I was I honestly was quite charmed by, you know, and by its, you know, its ways. For the most part, and yeah, I enjoyed it a lot more than I really thought. I was ready to kind of write it off straight away. I was like, although, you know, apart from the name thing, I was thinking it's going to be rubbish. I'm not going to like it or whatever. And I was actually, I'm actually quite drawn into this, and I quite like where it's going. It's all very familiar stuff, but it's all quite good. And then it's got that weird epilogue at the end with the which reminded me of the film he did called The Punished, which I don't know if you saw it, because I don't think we discussed it, but it was kind of at least partially like a promotional film, because he ends up sending his characters to like this local park where they go on water rides and stuff. It's like it spends like 10 minutes filming them on these things, which I know is probably added value for the movie, but it ends up sort of turning. I mean, it's a bad movie. I mean, you got to see it; it's terrible. But in a weird way, I mean, it's got this really, really uncharismatic, robotic like Arnold Schwarzenegger style sort of lead character, and it's just ridiculous. He's like he goes to a hospital. I'm going off track here slightly, but he goes to this hospital and meets this young girl, and like within like 5 minutes or something, he's being allowed to leave the hospital to take the girl to this water park thing. And so anyway, so you got they've got to see. So but this was actually quite respectable. I thought there wasn't anything particularly, say, apart from the scratches and stuff. And there's a little bit with an angel and stuff, which I don't think quite comes off. But I think overall, this is quite watchable, accessible, entertaining, stuff. If you like that little mashup. There was a film Rene Perez did before with Robert Bronzi called Once Upon a Time in, what's it called? From Hell to the West, I think. Actually, not Once Upon a Time. From Hell to the West. So that was another film that tried to mash up horror. Once Upon a Time in Deadwood actually was another one he did. So there's two of them. So he mashes up these sort of Western thing, and so you had in at least one of those. I don't know if it was both of them. You had Robert Bronzi as the kind of Western character, and then you had the monsters. I haven't seen it, so I can't judge it. But he likes to sort of revisit the same kind of territory. He's done, these slasher movies with monsters, like the one in this, quite a few times. He did one called Cry Havoc, again with Robert Bronzi, which was again trying to do more, a bit like a Friday the 13th kind of thing, I think, but with what if Friday the 13th starred Charles Bronson. I think he plays with Ken Convention.
That was quite good.
Like
I quite like that one. Yeah.
Oh, you saw it?
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah.
But two things which really sort of annoyed me in this. One is there's a big shootout in the forest, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And these guys are just basically just standing there, not trying to run for cover or anything, just standing there, taking their time, aiming at people, and obviously one of them gets shot and all the rest of it. It's like, oh, come on, really? This isn't the 50s. It's not 50s Western.
But that's what they were going for, I guess. You could argue that. I mean, that's why they do the scratches and stuff.
Or they could turn around and say, well, of course, so weapons back then weren't accurate, so you could stand 30 feet away and miss, basically. Except the woman, of course, who managed to get a headshot with every damn shot she fires. But the other bit was weird in this sort of Neanderthal sort of compound or whatever it is.
Yes, yeah.
And she, she kills this guy with an axe. She manages to escape, kills this guy, and then comes across all these other women, which I'm assuming are the Swedish ones that you sort of mentioned, which is probably why they aren't speaking to her in English, and they're all shackled up and sort of pointing to a set of keys. She's got an axe, just chop around the bloody the chains, because they're sort of chained to a wall, which is a wooden wall, made of wooden slats. Just chop the slats up. Job done. Don't worry about the bloody keys. But anyway, and that epilogue is because
I think they got to see. I think that's like a product placement-y kind of thing or something.
Yeah,
it must have got some. It said, you can use this location, but you've got to do like a little something. You've got to do like a little clip or something that showcases the fantastic fun that you can have at I mean, it is like a family fun day kind of.
It is.
Come on down kind of thing, right at the end.
Like a family farm, sort of a petting farm or something. Yeah.
I think that's why they put it after a couple of the credits. So they run a couple of the credits and then it sort of separates it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sort of mar the main film too much. I think that's.
I suppose they could lift it out of there and sort of have it as their own sort of promo.
I suspect that's what he's tried to do there. I don't know, but anyway, his band, Darkest Machines, I think it's
Dark Machines.
Dark Machines did the music and stuff as well. So,
how are you going to score it?
I'm going to give it a 7. I enjoyed it.
All right. I didn't enjoy it as much as you, but I
enjoyed it more than Death Kiss. I remember we did Death Kiss.
We did Death Kiss, yeah. And we did What was the other one? The Exorcist, Vigilante Exorcist, or whatever it was called.
Oh god.
Oh, that was a bronzy one, but it
That was a
wasn't
bronzy
Perez
one. That was, yeah.
Yeah. But the Death Kiss was I
Death
think
Kiss was,
probably
yeah.
the first Rene Perez that I saw.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I know what it was going for. I just didn't really think it worked. This one, I got where it was going, and I thought it worked.
I just wish the editing was a bit better, and they put a bit more thought into that shootout. Other than that, I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. So it's a 6 and a 7 for The Legend of Hawes. Go check it out. Our next film is Expired. In an uncharted future, two hardened souls meet and confront each other with the things they have done and what they have become. Well, that's a very obtuse statement for what is basically a bargain basement Blade Runner. Steve, over to you.
Awful. couldn't get on with it at all. I mean, it was so boring and dull. I mean, I like Ryan Kwanten. Yeah, I think he's really good normally. In this, it was like you couldn't understand him.
Yeah, it's funny that he's doing his mumblecore basically, isn't it? He's doing his Eddie Redmayne impression in this one, and it's quite funny that sometimes the film has subtitles for various bits, even though they're speaking English, because he's just mumbling so much.
Yeah, and it looks beautiful. The sets, the design, everything it looked gorgeous, but the story was dull. I thought the acting was awful. Even Hugo Weaving couldn't breathe anything into it for me, and I was just so let down, so bored, and just couldn't get my head around it at all. It was just frustrating more than anything, because I know, like I say, I like Ryan Kwanten. I think he's really good, but this is just, I've never seen him as bad as anything as it was in this. Even in Home and Away, he was better than this.
Yeah.
Just boring.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you, to be honest. I'll say a bit more in a minute, but over to Rich.
Now, you've already touched on a couple of the things that I wrote down or thought myself, because I don't know what mumblecore is exactly, but that was what came to mind, and I did think mumblecore Blade Runner. Is the thing that came to mind. The Blade Runner thing is just so obvious. I mean, it's so literally Blade Runner. But you said about the subtitles. What's going on there? Because basically the whole film has these burned in subtitles, except certain bits where for no rhyme or reason they're not there, which bugged the hell out of me, because it was just like, well, I mean, so many of the scenes, whether it was Ryan Kwanten or not, had these subtitles, and then just whole sequences, whole scenes, they dropped them. There's a whole bit near the end where Kwanten and the girl are talking in the hotel room and stuff, and there's none at all, and then or except when maybe I think she starts speaking in Vietnamese or whatever, and but yeah, so the whole that's interesting, weird, and annoying, because I wouldn't mind if it was subtitled the whole thing. That's quite interesting. Maybe they're trying to make it more accessible or something. I don't know, but that just bugged me. But yeah, it was that kind of the theme and the tone and the slowness and the mumbling, the really quite kind of thing, and I was just like, oh no. And he was doing it, it's a voiceover and stuff, and I'm like, I've got a feeling that I'm not going to like this very much. And then I was just thinking, this is one of those films where I'm just like, F you movie kind of thing, It's just like, stop wasting my time. I was like, I chose to watch this instead of like Hunt or whatever, and I was like, what the hell? Why did I make this? I'm committed now, and it's blooming 2 hours.
I know, it is just short 2 hours,
and I did like, unlike Steve, I did like Hugo Weaving. I thought I was really engaged when Hugo Weaving was on. And he was doing his speeches or whatever. I did enjoy those moments. But come on, I mean, do you remember we did Goldstone way back?
Yeah.
And this is the same director. This is an established director, Ivan Sen.
And Goldstone is damn good.
Yeah, we love that movie.
Goldstone was a really good film.
Yeah, very straightforward. Very, I mean, Western influence kind of thriller.
It was the mining town,
Really
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right in the middle of nowhere sort of thing. Yeah, that was
Mystery Road was kind of his breakthrough, which I haven't seen. I think that was, I think there's a TV series of it and stuff like that. But the Goldstone is the only one I've seen. But I have coming in. I was thinking, oh, looks interesting. Ryan Kwanten, Hugo Weaving, Ivan Sens directed it. I was full of promise, but then I was thinking, oh my god, it's like that blooming Salt and Fire or something. I just don't want to.
It is Salt and Fire, isn't it? Basically, it
was just tedious, and I was just thinking, I don't have time to waste on films like this. Really, it's the kind of watching this is the kind of thing that makes, I'm just going to jack this in. I can't do this. It's just it doesn't take much. It's just but I think we're spoiled because a lot of the stuff we watch is of a good standard.
Yeah,
and I just think this was just well below par on every level.
It is,
apart from an aesthetic level.
Aesthetics are wonderful. The cinematography, the lighting, the cityscapes and the flying cars and shit. That all looks really great.
So go and watch Blade Runner.
Go watch Blade Runner. Yeah, there's just no good story. You got Ryan Kwanten sort of basically whining about his mother abandoning him as a kid or something, and then trying to find her in a bunch of prostitute robots or whatever.
They even do that. It's that kind of the investigator ends up finding himself kind of plot.
That's what they want to do. But
that's what they were trying to do. And then we even get a sit down where basically one of the characters, I'm not going to say who, but it's probably pretty obvious, but the characters sit down and he just lays it all out.
Tells them everything.
Just explains everything. It's just like, which again, consider all things considered, I would expect they would handle it in a cleverer way than just kind of being oblique and then just going, I'm just going to put all my cards on the table right now. I'm just going to tell you, this is the backstory and everything. Here's all the background and whatever. So, and then after that, go back to being sort of obtuse and whatever again.
Absolutely.
And mumbling, lots of mumbling.
It's a bizarre one, Ryan Kwanten, he's done some other sort of genre movies before. There was that time travel one that we liked. There's another Australian one, wasn't it?
I think it was like pretty cool. 2049 or
that's something like that.
He's on Shudder recently with Glorious, I think, which looks promising, but again, I haven't seen it, so I can't judge.
And of course, Blunt Force Trauma, one of our favourite films. So yeah, he is good. He's a very solid, and of course, he's in Section 8 soon with Dolph and Scott Atkins.
Yeah, he's got. He's in loads of stuff. I mean, he's all over the place. I think just this is a bit of a misstep for whatever reason, and I don't think it's his fault. I think it's just the producers or the right. I can't remember. Did Ivan Sen write this one as well? I'm just checking.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So, and this was originally called Loveland. That's the title that comes up on the screen that we watch. So, that already tells us that we watched this film called. We're looking forward to this film called Expired, which Signature Entertainment are putting out as. And then it comes up with Love, and I'm like, oh god, that's
not a good sign.
That title is not that's not a promising title. No wonder they changed it.
Yeah. Okay, scores on the doors for this one. Steve?
5.
And Rich?
It's got nice cinematography and stuff, so I'll give it a 4.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to join Steve on a 5. Again, and literally just for those reasons, technically it looks great, but from narratively, it's torturous. It really is. So it gets marks for its technical aspects, but not for entertainment.
I could have been watching Hunt, for God's sake.
You should have been watching Hunt. You should have realised after 2 minutes and went, "Fuck this." Where's the thing for Hunt? There you go. Okay, it's 2 5s and a 4 for Expired. We wish it was. Our next review is Like Dogs. A young woman is abducted off the street in broad daylight and forced to participate in a bizarre human behavior experiment. Apart from one aspect, I really like this film. There's one aspect I didn't like, and I will come back to that. But I really did enjoy this. But Steve, what did you make of Like Dogs?
I don't think I enjoyed it as much as you,
Mm.
from what you just said, but I did enjoy it. I mean, there was something. Obviously, it's very, very low budget, as you can tell, but I enjoyed the practical effects, especially with the violence scene, shall we say. I thought the twists were quite good as well. I mean, one of them pretty obvious, but the other major twist I thought was actually quite good, but he's actually revealed quite early on. And I thought the performance was very good as well. I mean, especially the main girl, is it Lisa? Yeah. And the guy, Adam. I think the one thing that laid down was the George, I think it was. Yeah, George. I wasn't too convinced with his performance. But other than that, it's a nice, taut little thriller, to be fair. Yeah, I did enjoy this.
It is surprising, isn't it? Because when it starts off, and this woman sort of, you know, she gets abducted, she gets sort of dragged through into this weird compound, you know, a dog collar put around her neck, and sort of made to sort of sleep on this, you know, little mat in this sort of like cell sort of thing. And I'm thinking, this is like a misogynist wet dream, basically, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
And I'm thinking, is this what it's going to be like all the way through? This is sort of like, you know, this sort of degradation and torture sort of aspect to it, because that's the bit that didn't really, the way the people sort of wearing the hazmat suits and stuff talked and shit, and I was like, that doesn't really work. It doesn't quite gel with the rest of it. You know, it sounds too comic booky and too sadistic sort of thing. You know, kind of thing. It's not the sort of people you would expect. But I think that was part of it as well. You know, as the film develops, it's the music I hated in this. The score I just did not get on with at all. But the rest of it, as you said, the performance was good. I must admit, I had, you know, that first twist.
Yeah.
I had that in my head backwards. You know, I was starting to suspect something, but I had it backwards as you know, what was actually happening there.
Okay.
But you know, because I'm watching, you know, the first sort of 15 minutes or so, and every now and again you get, you know, a computer screen come up and they sort of going, you know, subject 1 is doing this and we need to do this. I'm thinking, why? You know, there's no context as to what it is you're doing. Even at the end of it, you know, when it's like, well, I still don't get what you were actually trying to prove. It's, you know, with this, it's a bit bizarre, but yeah, those twists work really well. And you know, it does take the film off in some very interesting directions. So yeah, this did surprise me a lot. And you know, after that sort of initial sort of period of like going, is this it? Is this what I'm going to be subjected to? For this sort of length of time, and it does develop quite nicely. Rich, you saw this one, I take it?
Yes. Yeah, and I echo your sentiments really, because I was initially thinking, I thought going in, based on the posters or covers and whatever, that this was going to be like a torture porny kind of thing, not very appealing, not really something I was particularly interested in. And then and then there comes the kind of twist, and I was like, oh, now that's interesting. Okay, I mean, I don't know how, it's probably, you know, not particularly original. You've seen that sort of thing before, but I wasn't expecting it here, and it does then sort of lead off the film in other directions, and there are other twists on top of that. So it was much more twisty turny than I was expecting, and I really enjoyed it. And all things considered, You know, this was a very low budget film, barely any production design. It's very small cast. Like there's literally like 3 or 4 people, and so there's like scientists walking around in like really oversized coats and oversized glasses and stuff, which suggests that they either recast or they managed to get some props and
like
and
a
stuff
job lot set of props.
yeah,
or
I don't know what it was,
something.
but anyway, so it's written and directed by Randy Van Dyke, who is not related to Dick Van Dyke as far as I can tell, or Barry Van Dyke or anything like that. So, but he has made some other films before, which I haven't seen. So this is the first thing I've seen of his. I was pretty impressed. I liked it. I thought there are the film has like acts, and I think you know, in a proper sense, like there's a twist, and then you know, that takes the film off in a certain direction.
Yeah, but you know, it's interesting you mentioned that, because what it doesn't do, you know, there's no chapter cards or any sort of silly gimmicks like that. You know, it flows nicely. So which I enjoy.
Yeah.
But I will say I don't like the penultimate one. Just doesn't work. I mean, there's a quite an interesting reveal. It's completely ridiculous. I mean, it's the most ridiculous development. But I'm looking at the clock and there's half an hour left. You know, I was thinking they really string that bit out a bit more than was necessary. I think that should have been like a you know, have that twist, you know, little wrap up scene kind of thing. But then they tried to make that into the final act of the film, which I think was a mistake. So what else what else did I want to say about this one? Don't watch the trailer. Say it is a film that's best to go in cold. You go onto the IMDb page, not only is the description going to start giving it away, but the trailer starts giving it away as well. So try and go in cold. I didn't see the twists coming, so whether that's just me being a sort of bit naive or something, but I thought the twists worked really well. I liked the cast. I thought Annabelle Barrett as Lisa was really good, and you say the rest of the cast did quite well. Yeah, maybe not with, you know, the George character is sort of a bit of overacting and stuff there maybe, but the dynamics and stuff I thought worked well, and working within the limited production design. I've written in my notes, it's got some very silly plot twists, but it's a lot of fun. It's very lively, and you know, you will have a lot more fun with it than you think you're going to, based on the cover. You think it's going to be really grim, but it's not. It's very amusing and entertaining, and you know, just wackadoo at times. You know, it's just fun.
Yeah, totally agree. And on that note, how are we going to score it, Steve?
I'll give it a 7.
And Rich?
I would have liked to have seen some improvements in certain areas, so I think a 7 is probably about where I'm at.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by this, as you guys were. The soundtrack let me down personally, but other than that, I thought this was pretty solid. So yeah, definitely a 7. It's very entertaining. You know, stick with it, guys. Don't look at the IMDb. You know, just stick with it. It really does sort of unfold quite nicely. Our short shot this week is Trusted Hands. A lone woman staying in a house in upstate New York tries to de-stress with a self-help relaxation tape. That is the crux of what's going on. There's a bit more to it, but over to Steve. What do you think about this one?
No, this wasn't for me at all. I'm sorry, but like, I don't think there is anything more to it. It's literally a woman walking around a house, listening to a relaxation tape, getting a phone call off the mum, doing a bit of
self-help.
What's the word? Well, yeah, and then having a wank at the end, and that's it. You know,
that's what I meant by self-help, but never mind.
Yeah, I know, but I just no. There's nothing to it. I'm sorry. It was just that's literally it. She walks about a bit and listens to self-help. It's not. I don't know. I don't know what they were going for with it. You know, there's no.
It's
plot there. There's no. It's like a. I wouldn't even call it a mood piece. To be fair, it's just nothing.
I kind of I see where you're coming from. I really do, and it is kind of like a mood piece that, you know, there's no sort of conventional narrative going on here. You know, we're literally it's a woman in this house, you know, in the garden, and we, you know, we're listening to this tape, you know, this nice deep soothing voice as he's telling her to, you know, just relax, take a breath, that sort of thing. If the mind wanders, let it bring back. But as it goes on, there are one or two little moments which sound a bit sinister. Like when he said, I think the second time he says, "Oh, if your mind wanders off," you know, and the first time he says, "Don't worry about it, don't feel guilty about it." The second time he says, "Punish yourself." Or you might have said don't punish yourself, but it sounded like punish yourself.
Yeah.
Just for a moment. And then, you know, it gets even more creepy going, well, if I was there, I'd be stroking your shoulders right now and all this sort of stuff, you know. And it's like, okay, that's getting a bit personal for a relaxation tape. And then you start wondering what it is that you're actually sort of listening to and whose voice it is. But other than that, as you say, it is sort of very sort of straightforward. Rich, what did you make of Safe Hands?
Trusted Hands.
Trusted Hands.
I think I'm not sure if it's interesting because I'm not sure, is it a recording, purely a recording that she's listening to, or is she involved in like sessions? You know, like is it kind of a live thing? Because like you say, it does go down that route. I mean, that would be a very weird thing to just put in a mass market tape.
Yes.
So I think that this is possibly
relax with your stalker.
Although they never interact, I think she has joined a session or something, and everything. So you've basically got these two characters, one of which you see but never hear, because I don't think we actually ever hear Alison say anything. And then you've got the other one, we hear him but we never see him, which I think is quite interesting. And there's a dynamic going on between the two of them that is not really fully clear. It is, you know, it is unclear. It's open to interpretation, especially, you know, because you get to the end, there's not really a resolution, and you know, what does it mean and stuff. We've seen film. This is the new film from Matthew Kyle Levine, who sent this to us to have a look at. We've previously covered a couple of his movies, you know, short films. We first got introduced to his work through Timothy J. Cox,
is it?
Yeah. The film Miss Freelance, which I didn't get on with really, and then I think we covered Daddy's Wallet.
Daddy's Wallet, that's right. Yeah.
Which again I didn't really get. So I'm not a particular. You know, this is art. You know, this is quite, you know, arty drama kind of stuff. It's not really my bag, and I'm trying to come at it from the perspective. You know, you've got to invest in it. You can try and sort of get out. But I did think I was trying to decipher it a bit. I mean, it made me think of the film Faye. I think it was Faye, which was a woman goes to a house and she's grieving and stuff, and but that was like really drawn out. But this is, you know, short, succinct. I would have liked a bit of resolution, but you know, I watched tons and tons of short films. I watched one the other day called The Bends, which was about a young woman who was pregnant, and she's an MMA fighter and stuff, and trying to deal with her situation. You know, does she? Anyway, that's a film in which it's a female protagonist. She's dealing with emotional stuff. We don't really get her speaking, and we don't really get a resolution of what is happening at the end. So it's you know, par for the course with some of these kind of movies. But I think there's some interesting stuff going on, especially with the soundtrack, because you've got the voiceover, which again is supposed to be this kind of authoritative but sort of calming voice. And then whenever her mother
speaks, you get that sort of distorted, sort of weird sort of noises in the background, don't you?
Yeah, because you've got this kind of interplay of the different influences. So you've got the therapist's voice, and then you've got the voice of, you know, the sort of irritating voice of a mother in the background. They keep repeating. He keeps repeating that. The sort of conversation, that's a brief conversation that she has, which is completely innocuous and just sort of self-absorbed by her mum. But there's like you get this sort of sound, the score is just sort of really contrasting and just making you feel very unsettled, and it's trying to reflect how I guess she's feeling and how we're supposed to feel about what's happening there, and how the voiceover from the therapist character becomes, it's quite an oppressive thing. It's quite heavy over the film. It's like she's on her own in this place. There's nobody there, but his voice is kind of hanging over her. But she's kind of letting herself be almost dominated in a way. And almost stopped from progressing or something. I don't know, because she doesn't, get from the beginning to the end.
It's almost because there is that sort of element.
It's almost like she's trapped.
Yeah,
she remains trapped. There's no resolution.
It's almost like there's a sort of hypnosis element to it. When he's sort of controlling her breathing. Yeah, even to that level where she sort of say, "They take a breath and I hold it." Now take lots of breaths. That sort of thing. It's a weird element of submission, I guess. In a way. Yeah. And
then this stuff where she's in bed and stuff, and the bits with his what he's saying. Is he? I mean, that's I guess some of the stuff that's open to interpretation, because we never see that him directly. We don't see his face on the screen or anything. We don't know if he's directly talking to her, or is it something that was recorded and she's reusing it or something. We just don't know. It could be anything. This could be something, a session that she recorded ages ago, and now she's gone. Maybe she developed a relationship with this guy, and she's trying to deal with that, but she can't let go of him. So she's in here, and she's sort of going through a repeated cycle. There's nothing in the film to indicate that, but you could, you could certainly interpret it. You can interpret it in a number of ways because of how sort of vague it is. But I thought, it's very handsomely shot. I mean, I don't know if it was a coronavirus-y kind of project or whatever, but it's literally like one actor on screen. In a very bare location.
One actor and two voiceovers, basically.
Matthew Kyle Levine basically made the whole film himself. Shot, edited, scored, did it. So I liked it. It's not the kind of film that I'd really recommend, really, to be honest, unless you're into like art films and stuff. I have to be honest. Just in terms of my taste, I'm an action movie guy. So that's where I'm coming at this from. But I think if you like well shot, sort of intriguing little films, I think it's definitely it is worth a look for that. But I think if you're after a full narrative, resolution, are we gonna a satisfying conclusion, you're not going to get that here, but you are going to get something that maybe will leave you pondering it a bit. It'll either frustrate you or it'll get you thinking.
Well, we've managed to talk about it for quite a bit. So
well, I think the thing is, I think because I want to give it the fair crack. I don't want to just. I've tried to think about it a bit more than maybe I typically would. If I was just throwing this on, I would just probably be quite dismissive of it. But because I knew we were going to have a conversation, and Matthew Levine may well listen to this, I thought I want to show that we've explored it as thoroughly as we could. So
I did like this. It is a change of pace from some of the stuff we usually do, but I think there's, as you say, it is well shot. It is it doesn't outstay its welcome from my point of view.
It's only 12 minutes,
and there is this sort of this sort of very subtle element of not exactly menace, but sort of unease as it goes on. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
And I mean, he definitely likes working, stories about particular kinds of sort of dysfunctional characters. I mean, the character in this, the one in Daddy's Wallet, Freelance, they're all quite very, very detached people in one sense or another. I mean, although in this one, we don't really know her background, but we can tell that she's, you know, she's calling up her mum or whatever, but she's not involved in the conversation. It's a very, she's completely at a distance. She's gone somewhere to cut herself off. I don't know if she owns that, who knows, but she's cut herself off. And the Daddy's Wallet and Miss Freelance, the characters were also very, very, you know,
it did feel like a oh, what do you call it now? Not Apart Hotels. What's that company that does all the
like Airbnb?
Airbnb, yeah, that's what it felt like. You know,
yeah, because it didn't feel like she was walking. Because when we
didn't feel like she was living there.
No, it didn't feel like it was like she was arriving in somewhere. She'd hired this you know, sort of house or whatever. Yeah, so I think there's a lot you can infer and a lot you can bring to it. So yeah, I found it quite interesting. Not my cup of tea though.
Yeah. Okay, so there you go. That is Trusted Hands. It's available on Vimeo, and you'll find a link in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Wolf Mother. A former child movie star and a petty thief join forces to try and solve a child abduction. What the fuck is this?
I just want to apologize because I said, hey, you know, this has got a really great poster. I've been wanting to see it for years. Let's watch it. I mean, it does have an amazing poster.
Well, it has a great poster, and it stars Najara Townsend from
the cards. The potential was there, wasn't it?
The potential is there.
But yes, I'm sorry, guys.
I accused. You know, I accused Like Dogs of starting out like a misogynist wet dream. This really does.
This really is.
You know, this you know, our main character starts off as the most hateful person. You know, they really went out of their way to sort of make this guy as unlikable as possible.
Well, he's literally a rapist. He's the main character. He's the main character. He's the character we're supposed to identify with, and he's literally a rapist.
Oh god, you know,
but it's a redemption story, so I guess they had to kind of set up this thing. But yeah,
it's you know, he really does literally leave a bad taste in the mouth.
I've just got to say off the bat, so the poster is of Najara Townsend is fantastic. She is a supporting character. She is the second character. The main guy isn't on the poster, and you know, you can see why, because the film sells better looking at her, but she is not doing that in the movie. That is not the movie. It's a poster for a different movie. This is kind of I think it kind of echoes actually one of the ones we were talking about earlier, but it's kind of these two characters looking for their own redemption, and they're sort of it develops into kind of a Lovers on the Lamb kind of movie. But it's that I was really worried that it was, you know, that first act is so grotesque, and so there's a Polish director called Patrick Vega, who we did the Pragues of Breslau, but a lot of his films are about nasty characters doing nasty things, and he does things that are, you know, intentionally to sort of upset the audience and stuff like that. And in this one, Eric Peter Carlson, the writer-director here, who, funnily enough, one of his recent movies is like a family movie now, which I can't imagine. But in this one, he's like really gone out of his way to be nasty. I mean, the film looks really nice. I mean, it's really nicely shot. But it's nasty and horrible. And luckily, it moves away from that, and it tries to. But once you've established all that stuff in that first act with that character and him literally raping someone. You can't. I don't think you find your way back from that. I think it's just a step too far. I mean, it's funny because it makes me think about, you know, we watch a lot of, I mean, Rob Zombie and stuff like that. Characters who are unlikable, gangster movies, characters who are unlikable, but they usually manage to steer away from anything that's particularly, you know, off-putting. So you can make someone a murderer, you know, that doesn't upset most people, but especially in the current climate, you know, well, not a current climate, but, you know, more enlightened times now, Me Too and all that sort of thing. This kind of misogynistic tone and you know, trying to make a rapist into a sort of a sympathetic lead character. I think I mean, this was made in 2016, so, but you know, even so, I think it was a very misjudged thing to do. I think, and I've seen other films do the same thing, and I think it just doesn't work. And then the character itself, who's brilliantly played, by the way. I think the guy playing what's his name? Trying to find his character. The lead actor. I really enjoyed his performance. I just it's just I didn't like his character. That was the main problem. And Najara Townsend deserves so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's weird because the film starts with this guy, this fast talking guy trying to justify himself, what he does, all this sort of stuff. But by the end of the film, it's like a completely different film. But by then, I mean, all that voiceover has gone out the window. He's not such a smart ass anymore.
Well, it keeps changing. The film keeps. It's a bit like what we were saying with dogs. It's kind of they do a development, and then the film goes off in a different direction. So we spend again, Expired. This is 2 hours. How indulgent! Yeah. This should have been 75, 80 minutes, 90 minutes tops. Yeah. Why did you make it 2 hours? And I thought it was starting out as it's going to be a Quentin Tarantino knockoff kind of thing, and it sort of is. But Quentin Tarantino even with some of the stuff in Kill Bill and that, it's never that grotesque. He's kind of walked. Tarantino's always walked quite a fine line and done it. Managed to do it all right. But but this is it just doesn't. It just doesn't work. And then you've got things like you add in this. There's a sequence where they go to Tom Sizemore's house. He's in it for 10 minutes, and I had to go back because Townsend's character, who's brought her friends along, she just shoves her friend up against the wall and starts shouting her or whatever. And I think, why is that happening? Because a minute ago, the very previous scene there was no indication that was going to happen. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys saw something that I didn't, but I watched that scene, the scenes before and leading up to it twice. Because they basically drive up, they go, "Hey, get in the car," and then they drive and they land at the house and knock on the door or whatever. And then there's a bit of upset and whatever. And then she starts having a go at her friend and then the plot. There's some plot twist stuff coming out, and I was thinking, there's a scene missing somewhere because I'm just really confused with why 1 minute you were happy with your mates come along and the next minute you're completely upset with her. But that was the only bit where I sort of lost the plot thread. Everything else I thought was quite easy to follow, but I didn't want to watch it. I didn't want to watch it for an hour, let alone 2 hours.
Yeah.
No,
especially with adverts. This was on Plex, so this took me like 2.5 hours to watch.
Yeah. Because that comes up as the advert break is like 3 minutes long, aren't they, as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's like you say, he's so unlikable at the beginning, and what he does, it is trying to be redemption story, but it doesn't. He's just so irredeemable, And I kind of like the break in at the the vaults or whatever.
Yeah,
what are they called?
The bank.
But it's quite
the deposit boxes.
Kind of yeah, that's the word. Yeah. That's quite good. But then,
but it's so. I mean, the way they characterize the women, right, in the movie. I mean, they established it, and he's this really grotesque character. But all these women are just like, see, it's they're just sleeping with him left, right, and center. And it's like, it's almost like it made me think: is the actor in the movie the director? So it's like, is this like a vehicle? And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna do all this stuff or whatever, which you sometimes get with you get that a bit with some films sometimes. But no, I don't. No, Kevin Pinassi is the actor playing Ben Harper, the sort of lead character. But I was just, you've set up, all the women are just really offensively presented. Yeah. Even say Najara Townsend, who is far too good for him. She even ends up being like I'm falling in love with you kind of character.
The hooker with a heart kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's none of it doesn't ring true. It's like it is a sort of a ghastly male fantasy kind of thing. And there's this whole long scene where again in the first act, where they establish this girl's been kidnapped and this guy and what he wants to do, and these really nasty kidnappers and stuff, and that's quite a lingering sort of scene which sort of sets up the bad guys, but they're not in it much after that. Thankfully so, really. But really, again, that was another scene that was a lot more drawn out, than it really needed to be. You can establish, you didn't even need that scene, in my view. It's just not, it's not right. And
no.
I'm a I love a good crime thrillery kind of movie as much as the next person. I don't mind a redemption story or an unappealing character or whatever it is. I'm absolutely fine with it. But this one, just no, they just did it all wrong.
I mean, even like the section in the diner where they're working, and and he's just awful. He's just such a swat.
It's his dialogue is straight off a subreddit, isn't it? Basically, it's like some real sort of incel, misogynistic sort of subreddit thing. It's some of the things he calls the women are just absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, and then they fall at his feet. It's like not right.
Again, that's the male fantasy part. That's
that's what I think. Yeah, but there was a film. It wasn't as bad. It wasn't as bad as this, but in terms of seeing a really cool poster, and then the resulting film just being a real letdown and sort of different, very tonally quite different. There was a film called Stiletto. I don't know if you ever saw that one. I think it had people like Tom Berenger and stuff in it.
Oh, is that the one with the woman from not Bones, the Castle?
No.
Stana Katic.
Stana Katic, that's it. Yeah.
Stana Katic. Yeah. So and that had, I'm just looking it up. That had Tom Sizemore in it as well. That's interesting.
I actually like that.
That was again though. I think that was a crime thriller, and they was kind of selling it as like this action movie, and that was similar length, also around 2 hours. I think it was a lot different than I was expecting, and that's kind of what that was the film that popped into my head. There's also another one which I haven't seen called Sweet Karma, which have another quite exploitation movie kind of poster, but I'm not sure if the film would have,
Bear me 2 seconds. I'll tell you if it's the one I'm thinking of.
It's got like a woman on the front cover with like feathers and stuff, I think, or something like that. But it's got she's wearing like underwear and sort of garter sort of thing. I can't remember if it's garter.
Yes.
Or whatever. Anyway.
Oh God, yeah. That is an interesting film.
Is that in a similar vein? Because that's what I get from all these movies. They've kind of got these sort of sexy posters, and then the movies themselves are either disappointing.
That isn't disappointing. It's not. It's a bit rough.
Yeah.
But I would say it's not disappointing.
Okay. I won't write that one off then.
Yeah, don't write
just
that
based on this. But I think Stiletto was in terms of this is going to be cool. It's going to be a fast-paced sort of thriller, or whatever. But it was a bit more of a slow burny kind of movie, which I don't mind. I don't mind that. I don't mind. This is a grotesque sort of slow burn. It's just not. I'm sorry, guys. I was really looking forward to this one, and I was just so gutted that it turned out to be the sort of turkey that it is.
It's a roughie, this one, not in a good way.
Get the poster on your wall, fantastic.
Absolutely.
But steer clear of the movie, I'd say.
Yeah. Unfortunately, not everything can be recommended. This is probably one of the worst ones we've seen. It's just bizarre, misogynistic, all over the place tonally. And just basically just leaves a really bad taste in the mouth.
But nicely shot. So again, cinematography, kind of the saving grace once again.
There you go. Yep. So there you go. That is Wolf Mother, currently on Plex, as Richard said. Go check it out. That is the end of this week's show. So thanks to Rich and Steve for sitting through these films. Some good ones this week. Hunt is absolutely superb. Dogs. Sorry, like Dogs really surprised us as well, which is really cool. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter and Facebook at the DTV Digest. Also check out the DTV Digest Short Shots, where Rich puts a new short film that he's curated every evening round about
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. There you go. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.